All right, Andy, this is a huge one for many reasons. Newcastle against Liverpool, always a great game, but we're calling this one the Alexander Isak derby for obvious reasons, given the summer-long saga that's still going on between these
Yeah.
two teams and the Swedish striker. I mean, this atmosphere is going to be electric, right? It's in James's Park. I can already picture in the banners, the chants, everything that's going on between these two fan bases around who is what a brilliant striker, but we still don't know where he's going to be when September rolls around. But focusing on this game, your initial thoughts about what we can expect at St James's, because when these two teams meet over many years, but recently as well, it's been brilliant end-to-end dramatic games with loads of goals. So surely we're going to see the same again.
Yeah, I'm just glad this one is being played at St. James's Park. I'm curious to see what the reaction and just the atmosphere is going to be like in the bill. I imagine it'll be intense, probably.
A little bit.
It's. By the way, well done to the schedule makers for getting this, into week 2 of the season while this is still
Drama.
going on. Yeah, the foresight to see that one. I think it's going to be pretty open. Liverpool will try to not have it that way so much because they want to have a little bit more of the control, and they have the midfield type players who can get on the ball and who can keep it and who can pass it around. Whereas Newcastle, I mean, they are a strictly counterattacking team, especially without Alexander Isak in there. He was the one who would drop in and help to break up, defenses that are sitting in and spring someone else behind typically. And without him in there, if it's going to be Anthony Gordon kind of as a false nine again, Alanga on one side, Barnes on the other, that's just straight up counterattacking. And I think that's going to breed goals in this game, just based on what we saw from Liverpool defensively in their opener against Bournemouth. They're still figuring some things out there. The fullbacks, especially Kirkes on one side, Frimpong on the other. Frimpong he's going to be a real addition to the Premier League. He's going to be a real joy to watch. Getting forward and just the push that he provides for that Liverpool team. But I got some questions defensively, and so I think we're going to see some goals in this one this weekend, which is great. Newcastle might look at the situation and think, wow, if we just had that Alexander Isak figure in there, we could still be a special team.
Yeah, that was the only thing missing for them last week. I mean, they went away to Aston Villa, who were going to be right up there again, challenging with them for a Champions League spot. They were brilliant. I mean, they launched so many good counters. Like you mentioned, they're so good at doing that. Alanga was really, really good, apart from the finish on a couple of occasions. Gordon, the same. I think they're two young players still, and that's the final step for them. But they're not centre forwards. They're not strikers. They're not clinical finishers. That's not what they're in the team to do. But I just can't get over we'll talk about it. In terms of Isak, the way it's been handled and how poorly it's been handled by both sides, I think, both from the players' side, but also the club side. It feels like Newcastle obviously knew the direction this was heading in for a very long time. And whatever you want to believe, the rumours, reports are that Isak's told them many, many times over the last few transfer windows, look, I want to go to that top team that's challenging for the title, that, he's done a great job for them. Please, could you, help me when this moment arrives? And it's arrived. But I don't see any situation here, Andy, where Isak isn't a Liverpool player at the start of September. I know maybe Newcastle now are digging their heels in. They're staying firm on their transfer fee that they want. But Liverpool have all the cards here. They have controlled the situation pretty well for them. The only question I have is that, do Liverpool actually need Isak? Which I know that's something we've talked about. Given the imbalance in their team already, it looks like, given the signings in the summer. But how do you think this has been handled? Because Newcastle fans obviously aren't going to be happy with Isak, even though some might understand that he wants to go. Isak obviously said he's never going to play for Newcastle again. He's pretty much openly said that in these statements, and there's no going back for him at Newcastle, it seems. But is he really going to sit in the stands on the bench for Newcastle until January? I can't see it, mate.
Me either. I don't think Alexander Isak has handled himself in the most professional, upstanding, trustworthy, whatever adjective you want to attach to it way through this. That said, this is a pretty common situation that we see in the football world and in the transfer market. And typically clubs have an understanding that, of where their place is in the food chain. And I think maybe certainly Newcastle right now, are of the opinion that they should be viewed as a bigger club than they are, given the money that they have and the ambition that they have and the players that they could attract if they were just allowed to spend all of the money that they want and that they can. And so them, I think, not quite understanding where they think they are, not being able to take where they think they should be and put it with where they are and operate in the real world, I think is really, really hurting them a lot, because I don't know what happens between now and the deadline, but I do know that if he leaves and he goes to Liverpool, my big question is, well, what the heck do Newcastle do now? They have all this money and they probably have 3 or 4 days to go out and spend it and put together a coherent team for this season.
And everybody knows that they have all that money. So any deal you do for a player is going to add an extra 15, 20 million quid on at the end.
Yes. And we've already talked about the Eberechi Eze situation between Spurs and Arsenal this week, and how that was handled incorrectly, and just the situation was managed incorrectly by Spurs, and they weren't able to get that deal done. It feels a little similar to what's going on here with the way that Newcastle are kind of mismanaging the Isak situation, because they could have gotten all this money months ago and had plenty of time to sound out recruits and talk to them and put together a team with a preseason, and they don't have any of that now. They have really backed themselves into a corner where either they're going to get a bunch of money with no time to spend it, or they're going to get an unhappy player who does not want to be there, who's going to show up and play, I would think, probably just because, I mean, it is the best way to get paid if you show up to work and you do your job. And I just can't imagine him not doing that and sitting out until January. So I guess moral of the story, there is no good outcome for Newcastle in this situation.
There isn't. And obviously it comes, there's so many moving parts of this story, but there's been changes at the club at the director level in terms of the recruitment, the technical sporting directors. So there's so much going on there where it doesn't seem like everybody was aligned about what the plan was, what we're going to do. And you're right. I think Newcastle, it's a stubbornness basically in terms of, we don't want to sell him because we should be able to spend all the money that we want. These rules are ridiculous. And
shouting to the world, we are a big club, doesn't make you a big club. And it kind of feels a little bit like that's how Newcastle are viewing themselves against the rest of the world at the moment.
It is. But yeah, if Liverpool get Isak, again, I'm not sure how he would fit into this team, but he would obviously be a fantastic addition and probably a difference maker in another Premier League title for them, and maybe even the Champions League as well. But we talked about Liverpool a little bit. I just want to touch on what you said. Defensively against Bournemouth in the opener and throughout pre-season, Arne Slot's talked about, hasn't quite been happy with the balance, and we saw obviously changing in the fullbacks, exciting attacking young players. But yeah, it's just in midfield a little bit. It feels a little bit just off by little bits, but the way that they did struggle against Bournemouth, who are, again, a very good counter-attacking team like Newcastle, does give me some problems and concerns for Liverpool, not just in this game, but considering that half of the Premier League team, if not more, teams like to play this way and counter. And I think, Liverpool have kind of shown their weakness there for this season. So I'm intrigued to see how they get control. But key point, they didn't have Ryan Gravenberch for the first couple of games. So
there it is.
That makes a huge difference. We can't underestimate what a big player he's been in, just plugging those gaps and giving them, like you said, more control in these kind of games. But prediction-wise, what are we going for then? Because we could go for absolutely anything here, and I think we've pretty much had nearly all score lines in the history of this fixture. What do you think?
I'm going to go with a 3-2 in favor of Liverpool. I think it stays close for Newcastle, just on the adrenaline of the entire situation, I think, and just what's going to be an incredibly charged up St. James's Park. But if you just look up and down the squad, if you look at the 11, you look at players 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 who are coming off the bench to affect this game later on, there's really no comparison.
I'm going for 2-2. I think that given what you said, the atmosphere, the situation, again, they might not admit this, but the last thing Newcastle's players want to show is that, oh yeah, you can go to Liverpool, they're better than us, in terms of Isak, and just trying to prove a point that we are on the level. And I think all the things we mentioned in terms of the counter attacking, Newcastle are going to get chances on the counter. Of course, Liverpool are very good as well on the counter and in all facets of the game. But, we see Newcastle beat Liverpool and, League Cup final, of course, and cause them plenty of problems in recent seasons. So, yeah, I think a draw is about right early in the season, considering some of these growing pains that both teams are having. So head over to Pro Soccer Talk on NBCSports.com for all the latest how to watch information, live analysis, videos, reaction, and much more at this massive game under the lights at St. James's Park on Monday. Cannot wait for this one. Andy, thanks so much for joining me. Thanks everyone for watching. Enjoy the game. Speak to you soon.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host of NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch more videos all season long, and for even more Premier League content from original series to live matches, head over to Peacock.